Okay. Welcome to Tanakh Talk. I'm your host, William Hall, broadcasting live out of Kingsland, Texas, USA, with episode number 29 of Controversial Issues with Rabbi Chaim Coffman, the crazy rabbi from the Holy Land of Israel. Tonight's topic is going to be a juicy one. Prearranged marriages. Why in the world would that be so? So what does Judaism actually teach? What does Torah teach about marriages and about getting your children set up for future marriages? So I guess we'll find out soon enough. Rabbi, welcome back to the show. Sorry it took so long to get this thing up and running, but hey, you know what it is? This is not a pre-recorded event, so that's how we roll.
Sure, it only took 5 minutes. It's a good thing I'm here.
I had
nowhere to go. So
I was very clear. 5 minutes in cat years. I told you that ahead of time. So you're talking about at least 35 minutes. I came in early. Oh man. Okay, so
I came in late. That's all right.
Yeah, right. I don't know why. I haven't used this little 360 camera in a while, but I'm going to try it again without putting a title in. Let's see what happens.
Does that mean you're going to turn me upside down in green or something?
I can't tell if it's actually working or not. I think it is. It says preparing to start the broadcast, but it did that earlier too, but it didn't actually work. So for all you people out there who are seeing the strange circle on your screen, in fact, I'm pretty sure it worked this time because I see something different than I saw a moment ago. And there it is. Okay, so if you're looking at your home computer, you'll see this big long rectangle thing. It's got a 360 circle in it. If you take your mouse, Rabbi, you can even try it out, and click inside there and hold it down and drag it, it'll spin it around. You can actually zoom in to the picture too. If you're on your phone, it works better because then you can just hold your phone up and actually turn. And as you turn, it like turns you in the room. Or you could touch the screen and spin it with your screen. Some weird technology they got. So I'm watching it now. Probably won't last long, but it might last a little while. So now I'm going to turn the room monitor up so that the speaker can actually hear you talking as well, and they can see your mugshot actually on the software we're using.
There you go. You see it right there.
That's awesome. Okay, so today, Shiduch or shotgun. So Shiduch, it basically means like matchmaker, make me a match, right? It's making matches, matching up people. So Shiduch or shotgun. Mm-hmm. And so I'd like to say Mazel Tov to Rabbi Coffman for his daughter. She has gotten engaged, which actually kind of provoked my thought into going off rail.
Oh, you went way off rail. I think we weren't on time, that's for sure.
Oh, I know, right? That's cool. That's good. It's a good topic. It's good. It'll make a good show because a lot of people wonder why did they have prearranged marriages? What does it say? Does your daughter have any say so? Why are you doing this to begin with? Isn't that like torturing your child, getting what the parent wants, but the kid has no say so? I mean, there's a lot of really interesting viewpoints on this, accusations and some pros, some some is for, some is against, mostly against. But what's really ironic is if I asked my Sarah came in here, she just turned 14, and asked her about marriage, she would say, "Of course, I've got to wait for you to pick me out a husband." Hey man, I worked on this baby since she was a young girl. She's already expecting it. Not that that's going to go that way exactly, but I just wanted to make sure she knew I was not going to be out of the picture when it came to picking. So anyway, so that's kind of where we're at. It's like what does Tanakh teach in regards to these things? Is it something that the parent is supposed to have a say-so in? How does it have an effect on autonomy? I mean, how is it that Judaism, for example, has maintained its identity for so many years? Could it have happened had they lost that? Had they lost that value and let their children just marry whoever they wanted to and from wherever they wanted to? So overall, this topic, although it seems kind of not so broad, is a very broad topic all the way across the board. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's kind of what we're going for. So I don't even know where to start, other than, like I said, Mazel Tov to you and your daughter. You gained a son-in-law, and may you have many grandchildren that will be Torah scholars and
Amen. Amen. So as you mentioned, spill the beans. I haven't put up on Facebook yet because not everybody in the States knew. At least a few other people to tell. So yeah, my daughter got engaged
Oh man!
last week.
Hopefully they're not watching the
actually,
show. Hopefully they're not watching the show.
No, everybody knows now. Everyone who needs to know.
Okay, good.
At least the immediate family, they definitely know, and trust me, they wouldn't be watching this because I'm on it. So,
right.
So
That's funny.
So in any case, that's definitely true. Thursday night we made a Chaim with the other family,
Good.
where the other family came over. So, we sang, we drank, we ate. We ate a little bit. Got a few pictures. Got a few pictures also. So that was just between us and the family. So there'll be a more formal engagement party this week. Actually, Tuesday night. Anyone happens to be in Jerusalem area, especially where I live. So everyone is definitely more than welcome to come. Should be fun. Especially if I get up to speak, it'll even be funnier, depending how much I have to drink or not. But I will say that I did make out pretty good, in the Dale, like 5 or 6 cows, a bunch of camels, and a whole flock of sheep. So we're I don't know, we're gonna fit everything.
That's the way to.
Living room, you can see, like, I got my
funny.
books in the back here, Mo, so. I get all these animals that are gonna be hanging out here. So, one thing I'll say, just an introduction, is basically 95% of Orthodox marriages actually work, and they don't end up in divorce. Now, they don't end up in divorce not because you can't get divorced, right? The Torah says clear that you're allowed to get divorced. I mean, you do what you can, to save a marriage. But if it can't be saved, or, people don't want to get help, or whatever the case is, then there's a mitzvah to get divorced, even though the Talmud says that, God himself sheds tears, on the altar, when a person gets divorced. Not even a person marries the one that they're supposed to marry, all things being equal, then that can still happen. A person can still blow it by having the perfect match. Even so, someone once told me, they said, wow, divorce in the Orthodox community, is rising. I said, when you get up to 10%, we'll call it an epidemic. I said, in the secular world, what is the divorce rate? I said, 50%, 54%, 60%. I said, am I getting warm? So I said, yeah, but in the Orthodox community, see, this is cognitive dissonance. In the Orthodox community, look, it's getting bigger. So even if it's 5%, which I think is too high, 7%, whatever it is, even if you hit 10%, that means 1 out of 10 get divorced. In the secular world, it's like 6 out of 10. 7 out of 10, right? The statistics are much higher. So why is it done? Why is it done this way? So, you have to keep in mind that, a child that grows up in an Orthodox home, whether it's a boy or a girl, they're going to be educated, in the ways of the Torah, what they have to keep, what they're not allowed to do, these different things. And they're going to be guided, by their teachers. And, they'll be given, mussar and ethics and all these different things to learn to help them, reach their potential. And at a certain age, they should be ready to get married. Women certainly, let's say by the age of, 19, 20, should be, pretty much ready to get married. It's a scary proposition for sure. Boys a little bit later. And what the parents will do is they'll go to a matchmaker, even though you did sing pretty poorly, Fiddler on the Roof, which is a horrible, horrible Jewish play, because it's all about intermarriage and assimilation. Right. So, many secular Jews love Fiddler on the Roof, and it's like, next stop, assimilation. Leave your name at the door. It's a horrible thing, because at the end, all these people intermarry. So, it's I don't know, it makes people feel good, but it's for Judaism, it's a horrible. It's a horrible thing. So they kind of make fun of it, because they sing that song, matchmaker, matchmaker, make me, all this, and they, it's about Jewish history, but they sort of think people like me are going to be a fossil. We're just going to disappear, in a short amount of time. I think many people would be happy if I did disappear, but at the end of the day, these other movements, by intermarriage and assimilation, certainly disappearing by leaps and bounds. So why go back to this? Why go back to the system? of setting up matches and how does it work, right? So, so basically when a child becomes of age, now, again, should be by a girl, in Hasidic circles, girls get married even younger, like by 18 or so. Boys also a little bit younger. But, in the other communities, more, ultra Orthodox communities that are not Hasidic, so boys will get married, let's say, 21, 22, something like that. And, girls younger, about, like I said, about 19, 19, 20 is about the right age. So, each person is their own, is their own world. So you can't just say, okay, I'll set up this one with that one and, it should go. Well, families are different. How they're brought up, is different. What they're looking for is different. Some girls, or many girls are looking for boys to sit and learn for a certain amount of time, and they'll work hard in order to support them while they're learning. There'll be others that want their husband maybe to learn for maybe a year or two, and then work, and then work to support the family. So they're looking. So you have people looking for for different things. So therefore you have matchmakers who have a list of boys, a list of girls, what they're looking for, what their interests are. I mean, I don't mean outside of Torah, like, they like to, you fill in the blank or whatever it is, but they, and interests are not, necessarily not important. It depends how important that, they may be. But at the same time, when they're set up, or when you're looking for a match, you're looking for someone who meets the criteria of what the other person,
Right.
What the boy or girl is looking for. Now, if you have two people that are set up, and they get attracted to each other, but their philosophies are very different, right? That is going to be a major problem, because, essentially what you want is that they're going in the same direction. Probably most marriages will end up in divorce if, let's say there's a red flag, while they're dating. If there's a red flag and the person says, yeah, it's not really a big deal, at the end of the day, it could be a big deal, could end a marriage, right? Depending what it is. But usually if there is no red flag, and, each person meets the other's criteria, then there's no reason why it shouldn't work. Now, is it a guarantee? It's not a guarantee, but at some point you have to take a little bit of a leap of faith. That's what people do in marriage, when they get married. So I'll tell you a personal story. When I got engaged, so my wife and I weren't necessarily 100% on the same page, but I saw that we were both going in the same direction. So, after 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks of dating, I proposed. We got engaged. I flew back to America before Thanksgiving, which kind of unheard of at that time, or most times to do that, because middle of learning. So I went back for a week, and 25 years ago on Thanksgiving, halftime of the football game, opened up the champagne, because I bought champagne earlier. Opened up the champagne, said Mazel Tov. Everyone looked at me like, "What do you mean Mazel Tov? For what?" I said, "Well, I just got engaged." I said, "I'm engaged," and I was only dating for 2.5 weeks. They thought I was like, more than out of my mind, even more than normal. So, 25 years later, so things are, still well. Thank God for that. And again, it's because, even though my wife kept saying, like, how do you know I'm not going to change? How do you know this? How do you know that? And, we spoke so much, and we had so much in common, that, I found it very hard to believe that, it could end up any other way. Now, again, that might have been a leap of faith, certainly by me. But, if both are going in the same direction, similar backgrounds, similar goals, it could be, I didn't, a person may say, well, I didn't necessarily think I was going to meet this type of person. Maybe they didn't think they were going to meet someone so extroverted, someone who talks so much, or, different things. When I met my wife, she wasn't looking to date at all. She actually went to the Western Wall and prayed she should never have to go to a shadchan. She didn't want to even go through that experience. And she went up north and met, some of her friends met some of my friends, and, we met, and, and that was basically it. So, I mean, that wasn't the normal way, of doing things. So what happens? So in this case, what happens is that, someone will mention, someone will mention someone that they think, might be good. So what do the parents do? They, check them out, see if anybody knows the family, if anyone in, different neighborhoods know the family. And Israel is a very small Jewish world, and the Jewish world is very small in general. So, I've been in a lot of different communities here in Israel. So, checking out people, is not really that hard because they usually know some people that know them, or even if not. So, have other people, call, or my wife will call, or I'll call, see what the family's like. And then you see what the boy or girl is like. And then you speak to, people that know them, know them well, and, what they can say about them, and, what they have to say. And you see, by what they say, is that going to be something that is good,
Sure.
For your child? So what does the other side do? They do the same thing. They check out you, they check out your kid, what they're doing, where they're going, they'll speak to some of their friends. And, if they check out and you say, well, it sounds pretty good, let's let them meet. So then they'll meet the first time. Sometimes the parents will meet, the other prospective person, and, speak to them for a few minutes, and then, they'll go on their way and say, well, good luck. And, then they'll meet and they'll see, they'll see if, they'll speak for, an hour, hour and a half, something like that, and usually you can't tell anything from that. So they usually go on a second time. You have to see if there's any, if there's any connection. And one of the most important things is that, as Talmud says, first of all, you have to meet, you have to see the other person. And the second thing is you have to be attracted. A person cannot marry someone if they are not, if they're not attracted, or there's no emotional connection. Now, obviously, you're going to say, well, how can you have an emotional connection if you only meet, a number of times, right? But, a person will see, you can only talk for a certain amount of time. You have to do things, you certainly have to do things also. But you can see if a person's talking to someone and you just don't like what they say or what they answer, you're not going to go out with them again. I mean, you won't have that compatibility, right? If like my wife and I, as the story goes, we're coming back from Sfat. It's up north, about 3 hour bus ride. So, I sort of forced her to sit next to me, and, we talked the entire time, like, 3 hours. So by that 3 hour conversation, we didn't sort of leave any stones unturned. So I know where she came from. She knew where I came from. We had similar goals. We had similar backgrounds. So, so when people meet, so, there's like it's sort of like a protocol. It's funny, the boy that, my daughter's going to marry had, like, he had it all set down. The first date, you do this. Second date, is like this. Third date, okay, you start clarifying. Like, he had a whole, I mean, whatever. There is sort of there is a protocol, of like, what you should bring up. It shouldn't be so intense at the beginning. And then, you start asking different, different questions. You want to see how they react in different situations. So this boy comes from a family of 12 or 13, and he's got 8 sisters, right? So my daughter asked him, so, you have so many sisters, it must help you deal with women better. And he's like, no. He's like, no, not at all, actually.
Right.
Anyway, so my daughter's like, all right, check that one off. Anyway, but so when they meet, obviously there's no physical, interaction. So you have to actually, like, see where the person's coming from. You see, where their goals are. Like I said, there's only a certain amount of time a person can talk. It's, gets tiring. So if you make it past, like, the second date, so, by the third date, fourth date, then they start to, go places, start to do things, et cetera. So, it helps draw a connection. And then usually, I mean, in Hasidic circles, they only meet 3 times, 4 times, maximum. And then it's either put up or shut up. Either you're going to get engaged or not. So
Right.
by the ultra Orthodox, it's not necessarily like that. It's usually at least 8, 9. Some say even, and go out 10 times. But, when you're already hitting like 7 or 8, something like that, you have to make a decision. You have to see, if you feel compatible, you don't feel compatible. Again, there's only so far you can go, and then you have to make a decision. So if there are no major red flags, you do feel a connection, you are attracted, you definitely have to be, you have to be attracted to the other person, but you have to make sure that attraction is not infatuation, right?
So this is where it gets sticky for the parent, I would say, right? I mean, because a lot of people think that the child doesn't have any say so in the matter, but it's really not true. I mean, a parent's not going
No, that's totally
to
not true. The
right,
child, like by my daughter, by the fifth or sixth date, we
right,
told her that, at some point you have to make a decision. Like, I'm not sure. How can I make a decision? This, that, and by the eighth date, we try to help her along the way. And, at the end of the day, it's her decision.
good,
If we
good,
say
yeah,
we're making this decision, one of the 10 Commandments is you have to listen to your parents. But in
right.
this case, if she says, I'm not marrying this person, she has every right to say that.
Okay,
And
so
a boy has every right to say that.
right, right, gotcha. Someone Uriel on Facebook is watching through 360 Live, and he said that his comment says, "I had an arranged marriage, and it was the greatest thing that ever happened to me." And that's pretty cool. This is an older guy, so that's pretty cool. It's good to know that. I mean, what I find interesting is this. And when I told my daughter, I said, "Here's the thing: if you base your relationship status or your let me get the switch screens here. I haven't even seen that." If people get married because they see someone they like and they're infatuated with them, and the divorce rate is through the roof, even through the Christian church too.
Right.
Not that's all across the globe. But if you happen to come across a situation where a marriage takes place based on simply a decision and an arrangement, whether it's prearranged, that's not what I'm saying, but there's something that's
Right.
not based on looks, not based on emotions, then you don't
That's
have
wrong.
to deal with that.
That's wrong. It has to be based. The Talmud says clear. You have to see the person.
No, I don't mean that.
Seeing the person doesn't mean
Right.
infatuation, but you
Right.
have to be attracted. There has to be.
Oh yeah. Oh,
There
yeah.
has to be some emotional connection.
Right. Right.
You
I
can't
see
just get
that.
married, like in this case, I know the family 25 years. I know the uncle and the aunt, 25 years. I've been to a lot of the weddings. I've seen the father of the groom to be, many times, and we've spoken. I mean, not so extensively, but there were so many things, about how all this worked. I mean, I could go on and talk about all the divine providence and everything and, whatever. But, in general, in general, on paper, this looks like an amazing thing, right? But you don't get married based on what's on paper. You don't get married based on, they have a great family. She fit into the family very well. This guy's sister is a very close friend of hers. They went to school together. She found her a job. They worked together. I mean, it was a little bit awkward dating her brother, but in general, there were so many things that said like, duh, like of course God's pulling the strings here, because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense otherwise of all these different things that happen. But at the same time, even with all that, we said you're not going to get married because the family's great. You're not going to get married because you feel that these sisters, his sisters are like going to be like your sisters, and and all that. At the end of the day, you have to make the decision based on what you feel for him, and that's it. Regardless of all the other external things,
Right.
all the external things are good. They're gravy, Thanksgiving, no pun intended. They're gravy, the gravy on top, but that's not the reason to get married. The reason is you're going to get married is because you have similar goals. You connect, you're attracted to each other, and, that's why you get married. These other things are benefits, but the
Nice.
benefits
Yeah.
don't outweigh everything else. So if she would have said after the eighth date, like, I just can't do it, regardless of everything else, that's her choice.
Right. So what is your advice?
That's her choice.
So what is your advice to the parents out there, whether they're Jewish or non-Jewish, whatever? What is your advice to them if they found out that their 18-year-old or whatever, I won't say 17 or younger because that's just that's a different program, but I would say their 18, 19-year-old brings home somebody and actually just says, "Hey, we're getting married," and without the parents' input at all. Is that something they should? Or is it too late by then? Or is it something they should interfere with? Or should they let it go and support it?
Sometimes it could be too late, and sometimes the parents should definitely definitely have a say, unless there are other circumstances going on where the kid is estranged from the parent. So it depends. It definitely depends on the situation. Now, in my case, my parents weren't religious and my in-laws weren't religious, so them making the match wouldn't have made any sense any sense in any way, and they wouldn't have done it anyway. But
Right.
So they had no they basically had no say. But if you're doing according to what the Torah says, and you're going according to those guidelines, then you say, oh, but the Torah says, 10 commandments, you have to honor your parents. In this case, I don't have to listen to them. I have no obligation, whatsoever to listen to them, because if they tell me, I want you to break the Sabbath, right? Why is it saying the 10 commandments? There's a juxtaposition of the verses of honoring your parents and keeping Shabbos. Because Rashi over there says, if your parents say to desecrate Shabbos, you don't listen to them. But it says you have to honor your parents, right? But if they tell you to go against the Torah, you don't have to listen to them. So in this case, what are they going to tell us? We should meet, we should do this, we should do the other thing, right? So, they have no say. They totally have no say, in the matter. And, in this case, it was much easier because, my wife was becoming religious. My mother-in-law didn't know what to do. And it's like, well, you just have to live in an Orthodox community and you're going to have to do this and do that. Well, we solved that pretty quick, but it's a daunting, it's a daunting task. And, in that case, it'd be a mitzvah to say the parents have no say whatsoever. If you're telling me the kids are religious, they grew up in a religious house and they decide they're going to marry someone against their parents' wishes, right, or whatever. What can the parents really do to stop them? At the same time, the parents say, we want you to marry this person, and they don't want to, they don't have an obligation to listen. Right? Now, if a parent would say, okay, you're coming home, you want to marry this person, well, can we check them out? Can we this? Can we that? They could, the kid could say, no, this is what I'm doing, and it doesn't matter. You have no say. Right? So that's also, not right, but it's their, it's definitely, their choice. And, there could be some misguidedness, along the way, because there's only so much, a person can do to check out the other side. There could be things that are hidden, which is forbidden. Certain things, let's say there are medical conditions. I know of a story of somebody that married somebody and the other side didn't tell them that, that their child, was manic depressant. They said, oh, we couldn't tell you that because that's Lashon Hara. Well, now you just messed up this person because you didn't give them that information. So you have to know when to give over information, what information to give over, etc. But, if someone has a serious flaw, that has to be disclosed. Now, yeah, again, you have to ask a proper rabbinical authority when that is disclosed. But if you don't disclose it, oh, it's Lashon Hara, I can't speak about it, it's Lashon Hara. Well, you moron, you're going to ruin someone's life.
Yeah, right.
And if you ruin someone's life, like, oh, it's Lashon Hara, I can't say it. Are you kidding? And someone else will lead someone astray, whether it's a Reform rabbi or who knows what. They say, oh, you can't say anything against them, that's Lashon Hara. The person's leading someone astray. Right? Would you say, if they want to set someone up and they know the person's a pedophile, you're going to say no. You can say, I can't say anything because, it's Lashon Hara. The person is a mazik. He causes damage. If you're going to set someone up that's got mental issues, that has to be disclosed at some point. I'm not saying necessarily at the very beginning, right? Depends on the situation, right? But, there are people that have messed up lives, totally messed up lives because there was information that wasn't revealed. Now there's only so much checking, that a person can do. And then, then you have to take a certain leap of faith because, marriage is a scary thing. A person doesn't know what's going to be tomorrow or the next day. But if you've checked everything out, this is the general rule, because I definitely learned this, through my two kids dating, that is, if you don't see any red flags and everything meets your criteria, then there shouldn't be anything to worry about after you get married. Doesn't mean it's going to go, 100% smooth. Doesn't mean there are not going to be issues. But if there are no major red flags, there's no reason to think that there will be after. There's not going to be any surprise, right? There shouldn't be any surprises. If there were red flags at the beginning and the person knew about it, and they said, nah, deal with it, or they don't think it's so important, and that ends up leading them, to getting divorced, so then that red flag was important. So in most cases where there's a red flag, that could definitely lead to divorce. At the same time, as a number of what they call shadchanim, the one who makes, the ones who make the matches, have said if there's no red flags, then in most cases there won't be red flags later.
Right.
It's not all of a sudden. It's not gonna, like, this recessive gene is all of a sudden gonna show up like 20 years later. Like. Either it's going to be there, either it's there and you see it or not, like, we don't know what life's going to bring in either case. So, certain things could happen. But in general, if you would think about that, say, oh, maybe this will happen. Maybe that'll happen. Maybe, my grandmother had wheels. She'd be a bus. Maybe, who knows what. Maybe I have to worry about this. I have to worry about that. I have to worry about 20 other things. If you do that, you'll never end up getting married. And that's why we get our kids married younger, because if they're older, because everyone's going to say in the secular world, you have to have a career, you have to be making money, you have to be doing this, travel the world, whatever. So then you want to get married 27, 28, and, good luck trying to find someone. Some people do, some people don't. And then their body clock starts to tick, and then they get screwed by the system, right? So they'll say, yeah, but you should never get married 19 or 20. Well, the later it takes to get married, the more baggage the person has, and it's much more difficult because they're not willing to,
Right.
they're not willing to give in on anything, especially let's say you take a woman who's got 3 degrees or whatever, and she's not going to marry someone who she feels is beneath her, who's got a lot less knowledge. If she's going through those degrees, and she's married and they're growing together, it's not going to matter, right? But if she's on her own, she's got this big job and she's making a lot of money and she's seeing the world and doing all these other things, someone else who's not going to meet a very high level criteria, she's not going to be interested in, or she's going to have to lower her standards. So, in the secular world, it's an absolute disaster. It's an absolute disaster because everything's based on infatuation. And people say, well, if a person meets 7, 8 times, then they get married. Well, how can they really be in love? Love really comes later, right? It develops. But if there's no reason, not to get married, obviously, there has to be attraction and everything else. But the common goals and everything that you do is going to be based on the same thing, right? So if people, only out, for the physical, and they say, well, we got to try things out to, see if we're compatible, whatever, that is going to diminish that connection, because that connection is just based on, physicality. Let's go back to, when Harry met Sally. That's, that just gets in the way. So that's why, in this case, that, that stuff gets in the way, and it's a distraction. So therefore, you have to be on the same page. You have to be going in the same direction. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to be the same personality. I mean, certainly my wife talks a lot more than me, right? Go figure. No, I'm just kidding. But imagine if both of us were like me, we'd be dead. So, you need personalities that complement one another. You can't have the same, 2 strong personalities together. It's just not gonna, it's not gonna work. So, you have personalities that complement one another, and, you have common goals, and 95% of the time, if not more, these things work because, again, you have common goals, common ideas. Now, after a person gets married, it could be what you thought the other person was. Maybe it's not exactly, what you got. That, the person can run into problems that way also, because they said they were going to do this, that, and the other thing before they got married. Then they got married and things changed, right? So now, now the wife doesn't look at the husband the same way because he said he was going to do this, that, and the other thing, and he's not pulling his weight. He's not doing what he said he could do, and then she loses faith. He basically lied or didn't meet, the challenge of whatever he said, he's going to do. You can run into problems like that, as well. But the most important thing out of any of this is that, there has to be communication, right? Because a certain amount of time during the month, you can't be together. So there is no physicality. You have to treat the other person like a person, and not for something else. So that's why it's crucial that a bond is made, and the bond is made in a very strong way, that there is communication, that you do talk, that, you talk out issues, what's important, what's not important, how do you want to do this, how do you want to do that, and you try and cover all your bases. And, that should lead, to a healthy marriage. Again, every marriage needs work, and, you have to put your best foot forward. There's no question. But at the same time, a marriage, that's based on trust, and it's based on communication, and it's based on looking at the other person like a person, and not like an object. Those marriages, the majority of the time, should work. again, it's no guarantee. But if it works the majority of the time, then there is what to be said for that. So I've had people, say, yeah, it's such a disgrace in the Orthodox world for people to get divorced. Torah says you can get divorced, right? The man has to give the bill, has to give the bill of divorce.
Right.
He can extort his wife. It's not right. There are other issues with it. Fine. I understand that. Doesn't mean people don't get divorced. People definitely get divorced today. It's, divorce in the other Orthodox community is rising, right? I don't think there's any question about that. It's definitely sad, what's going on. But at the same time, it works a heck of a lot better than the secular world. It's much more meaningful, right? It's definitely much more meaningful, and there are ways within the marriage to keep the marriage fresh, in a number of different ways. But again, if you don't have those same goals, and those things have not been, talked out, the physicality doesn't matter. That's not, that's not gonna make or break. Even though, in the secular world, it's like, it's kind of like Hollywood. It's gonna be like this. It's gonna be like that. It's gonna be like the other thing. And at the end of the day, that should never, make or break the relationship. It's part of the relationship. It's an important part of the relationship, right? We're going to keep this, PG. It's definitely, an important part. But at the same time, a person has to look at a spouse as a person, because they can't always be together. So if there's going to be that open communication, in those same goals, then there's no reason why that marriage shouldn't flourish, unless it atrophies and it's not worked on, and you take things for granted. You don't do what you used to do or whatever. So again, it certainly has to be worked on. But at the same time, I don't think there's any question. There might be issues with how the dating process works, and different things that may be, somewhat uncomfortable, and different nuances, and, whatever might be annoying, but at the end of the day, I don't see another system, it's gonna keep the sanctity of marriage together, than this, regardless of, Fiddler on the Roof, where they're just gonna make fun of it, etc. But, I'm always fond of saying, if it's not broken, don't fix it.
Right.
There's no reason to fix it. It works. And with the philosophy behind it, and what you're supposed to do and how you're supposed to do it. Okay, marriage is a lifetime of work, no question. But at the same time, going through it, you have to take these steps and plans and read and do these things that are going to keep it together. Otherwise, it's going to be a disaster, like totally like in the secular world. And that's why I think it works better than any other system. And there is what are you supposed to do after college? Person doesn't meet their spouse in college. You're gonna find someone in a bar. You're gonna go to a disco. You're gonna the whole point is just to hook up. It's all about physicality. It's not like you want to speak about Plato.
Right.
Let's talk about Socrates. What do you think about what Socrates said? Like, that's not going to be so interesting while you have the flashing lights and the music and, all these other things. That is never in a million years going to keep people together. And, at the end of the day, it'll be a disaster, right? Which is definitely what we see. So yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so at what stage of a child's life is it probably a good plan to start opening, like for the parent to start prospecting, if you want to say, and then at what stage should they allow courting, and what stage should they allow engagement?
Well, it's going to depend on the child. When the child feels definitely feels they're ready. Some people want to start their degree process, let's say, or start working in their field, or a little bit before they they start the date.
I mean, rewind. I mean, way before that. Like, I mean, at what time what time should a parent start eyeballing suspects, prospects?
Get out that shotgun.
Yeah, I mean, so like for example, when a girl turns 12 and she turns 14, should we start looking and just start seeing who's in your sphere of influence?
I'll tell you a story. By my oldest oldest
Okay. All
daughter,
right.
so my oldest daughter got married at 18,
Okay.
which I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but someone mentioned somebody, and we checked it out, and you know, and this is what happened. So, so you have to see when they're ready. It's funny. I got another daughter that just turned whatever. It's 18. It's going to be 19. So we already have people saying, "Oh, I got this one. I got that one." In the future. So I said, "Good. We'll keep an eye on them, and we'll see where things are holding. We'll see where things are holding by when she's ready. I mean, the daughter got engaged, so we had people left and right making suggestions because she was a top girl, and she had a lot going for it. So she wasn't lacking, that's for sure. So it's usually the other way around because there are more boys than girls actually.
Right.
So boys have more of a pick, right? So by my oldest daughter, when Mary would ask, "Oh, how old are you?" and she'd say, like she was 16 or 17, like he would tell me, like, keep an eye out, like start looking, But my other daughter, when she just turned 20, so at the age of yeah, like last year, he said, you should definitely start, you should start looking. So if something comes up, you should definitely, look into it. But it's certainly not younger than that. I mean, 14 and 15, you're not going to be looking.
Right.
You can make
Good.
jokes about it, but you're not going to be, you're not going to be looking. Who knows what's going to happen another 3, 4, 5 years, Anyway, but
Right.
in a couple years, you never know. You never know what's going to be. But yeah, before that's a total waste of time.
Right.
It's an absolute waste of time. So usually, like, before they're ready to date, you start putting out feelers a little bit. So like in this case, when like last year, so she wanted to go through, learning for a year. It took basically a year off to learn, to get any credit for it. But whatever, it took a year off, and then after that, when she started her program, what she's doing now, so that was her time, and this guy came up, at the right time. It's just so many, you know,
What's
you
your
know, in
pardon me?
in so many different ways.
What's your advice to the ger, to the Noahide, who doesn't have a community, and they've got a house full of children that are coming of age? What's your advice to them?
To a Noahide or a convert, you mean?
To a Noahide, who's following
A
Torah.
Noahide is much more problematic because you're gonna have to find people that think like you do,
Right. Right.
and that's a very, very tall order. It's not simple. I mean, there are Noahide communities. There are Noahide communities in different places that I think most of the people probably are older, not younger, that are part of these places. But even so, at the same time, that's going to be a much more difficult task because finding these people, they're all over the world and they're not in one place, and it's definitely much harder. Now, for a convert, for instance, it's going to be harder for them to marry someone else just because most people are not going to want to marry a convert. If they have an opportunity to marry someone who, grew up in a religious household, and there's more to choose from than certainly like a convert. So why would they choose a convert? Now you might say that's discrimination. Could be, it definitely could be, but there may be baggage there. There may be issues with their parents, and you're not just marrying the person, you're marrying
Right. You're marrying the
you're
family.
marrying a
Right.
package. But converts do get married. That doesn't necessarily mean they marry themselves. I mean, marry other converts. I definitely know people that have married converts, but it's not necessarily going to be a first choice for them. And listen, someone who grows up, the way I grew up, became religious. So people aren't necessarily going to be interested. If they grew up from a religious household, they're not necessarily going to be interested in my kids, even though my kids grew up religious, because it's not a pure bloodline. In my family, that 3 generations back, they haven't practiced, family purity laws. Like there are people like that. So okay, so my family's out. I work with converts and non-Jews. That's out for some people. That's like too out of the box. So okay. So I understand that. that's people's choice. But at the end of the day, I'll find like-minded people,
Yeah.
like-minded people, and that think like me and that are like me in different ways, and our kids will marry.
Okay, River Girl on YouTube is asking an interesting question. She said, "What about if you're a Noahide girl, woman who wants to remain single because of maybe they can't find a marriage partner, but she wants to have children? Can they do artificial insemination? Can they go to a sperm bank and actually select and do the thing so they can actually have children without having a man in the house or without having a guy altogether?"
Yeah, they can. I mean, they certainly can. It's better to be married, but if you're not going to find someone, and that's the only way you can have children, for a non-Jew, that is definitely an option. For a Jew, it's more problematic, for other reasons. But for a non-Jew, they have an obligation to populate the world to have kids. Obviously,
Yeah, right.
having kids means, with the spouse. It doesn't necessarily mean if they have kids otherwise that it's forbidden. There are forbidden relationships for non-Jews, but I think in the Noahide world that's probably there are two major issues. One of them is they don't have they don't have too many communities, and the other issue is even if there are some communities, how am I going to raise my kids? Who are they going to marry? That's that's a very real that's a very real issue. So there are some that are trying to build Noahide communities. So at least you can have these Noahide communities succeed. It's a very tall task.
Right.
It's a very, very tall task, and I think that is I think that's definitely a major issue. But I think 100% that a convert is not going to have an easy time. But I've had plenty of converts that I've dealt with that have gotten married. So I tell them straight away if they're single, whatever, that you're not going to have an easy time. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying that there is a reality. There will be discrimination. There'll be discrimination against somebody who didn't grow up religious, and even if they have a religious family, even if they're rabbis, one of the top 5 rabbis of generation, doesn't matter. They don't care. They're looking for something specific. Okay, so my kids won't marry their kids. Okay, but that's a reality.
Right.
You don't like it, it doesn't matter. That's that is it's a sad reality. Definitely, definitely. But again, when I bought into the system and I drank the Kool-Aid, so to speak, and bought into the system, I understood, what I was getting into, and I've seen things firsthand, things I didn't necessarily like either. But, there is a reality, and I will say beyond the shadow of a doubt that, this system works by far than any other system that exists. Is it perfect? It's not perfect. Right? It's not perfect by any stretch, but I heard a great rabbi once say, you show me one secular institution that's produced someone that's absolutely moral. He sent him to college and tell him he's going to come out moral. He said, I'll send him there. But there's no other system in the world that can produce, the quality of Torah learning and the quality of people, that exist in the world that adhere to these laws. Try and become and reach their potential and become the greatest people they can. There's no other system that works like that. I mean, in the secular world, if the divorce rate is over 60%, in the ultra Orthodox world it's like 5% or 7% or even 10%, then there has to be something that works. You have to call a spade a spade. You have to say that there's something special in the Orthodox world that works that the secular world can't touch a feather to. And again, people have said, yeah, they can't get divorced, they can't do this, and the women are stuck. You can get divorced.
Right. Right.
It does exist. It's not looked at as like, ooh, it's cooties, it's spiritual cooties, you can't do it, and it's a terrible thing, right? The Torah says you're allowed to do it. Okay, you want to try your best to make sure it never happens, right? But sometimes at the end of the day, that's what's going to be. It'll happen. Whether it should or not doesn't matter. But there is a reality. So I'll tell people all the time, you can say what you want about us, but your system definitely doesn't work. In a large scale, it's an absolute disaster. You can claim we're this, you can claim we're that, you can claim we're 20 different other things. We're closed-minded, we don't do that. Doesn't matter. As most people know, my bottom line is, does it work and can you pass it down?
Right.
If it doesn't work, you can't pass it down. 60% divorce rate means it doesn't work.
Right.
There's something wrong, right? There's something seriously flawed. 10% or 5% means that works majority of the time, the vast majority. That is nothing to sneeze at. So people want to say, oh, and these matchmaker, and it's so old, and it's so this, and it's so that, and it's not natural. Yeah, you can say whatever you want. At the end of the day, it works. And people are happy.
Right.
They might be nervous going through it and all these other things, but people are happy in the marriages. Does it mean you don't have to work at it? Does it mean it's going to be automatic? Of course not. You take a flower and you don't water it. You can try this at home. This is Botany 101. You heard it right here. Take a flower, don't water it, put it in the sun, and see what happens.
Right.
It's gonna die. It's gonna die. If you don't work in a marriage, no matter how attracted you are to the other person, it's gonna get stale. It's not going to work. It doesn't matter what you did before. It doesn't matter what you did afterwards. It's something that you have to work on. But like I said, I don't think there's any better system out there proven beyond the shadow of a doubt that it's gonna produce families going in the same direction, and continue that throughout the generations. The other system is dead. One generation. It's there's nothing left of it, and it's an absolute disaster. If I was if God forbid anyone who's secular growing up today, it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare what's out there. In the whole thing, it's just things have gone haywire. With what's going on with even with kids in grammar school, for goodness sakes. I mean, it's gone well beyond since when I grew up, and there's a reason that you're exposed to all these things. How do you think these people growing up, they should have families that know what to do and how to raise their kids, and and all that. It's a huge maze today. Even in the Orthodox community, the same thing. We need different tactics to deal with kids, and these it's a very, very hard generation to raise kids. At least we have the tools to be able to do it. The secular world got nothing. They just throw them to they just expose them to everything and say, okay, good luck. Choose what you want to choose. I don't think that's a recipe for success, and I've seen it. It's an absolute disaster. So I'm definitely for the system. It definitely it definitely works. It's it works in different ways for different people, and that's in the sense that how people experience it, what they go through, and etc. So it's like I said, some people there are plenty of things they don't like about the system. Okay, if you go to any major hotel in Jerusalem or anywhere else, you'll see in the lobby, right, you'll see men and women sitting together. You can tell they're on dates. It's like uncomfortable. No one ever wants to be seen by anybody else who they're with. It's there are uncomfortable things that go on. That's okay, that's part of the system, and it's artificial as well. It's also not so easy because you don't see the other person in real terms, because you have these long dates. You think like husband and wife are going to be able to sit and talk for like hours on end. I'll tell you everyone one quick story. I think it's a hilarious story. There was somebody going on a date, and they were stopped at a red light, and the girl takes the keys out of the ignition, puts the car in park. Meanwhile, the light turns green, and people are honking, and the guy's like, well, can I have the keys? And she's like, dangling the keys. She's not giving the keys. The light turns red. People are screaming and honking. Finally, after like 10 minutes, she gives him the keys back. He starts the car, goes on the way. So the guy says, can you explain this whole thing? Why'd you do this? She said, well, I wanted to see how you would react under pressure. And so she goes, I just want you to know you passed. So the guy looks at her and he says, oh, that's very nice. He says, I just want you to know you failed. And he took her home. So that's definitely one thing never to do on a
Right.
date. It's like, yeah, I want to see how this person acts under pressure. So you're in a,
Mm.
2 3 lane highway and you're stopped at a red light. Don't take the keys out of the ignition, just to see how the person acts under pressure. That's Kaufman's 615th commandment. Don't be a moron. So
Yeah. Right.
actually, that's not a made up story because I know someone who it happened to. So it's it was pretty underhanded, but that was you think you've heard everything until you hear something and you're like, wow, someone actually did that. They're like, well, that was the first time and last time. I think you're going home. We're going home. That's it. That's a great date killer. Anyone wants to try it? Go ahead. That'll be a great date killer.
Michelle says, "Yep, you can't fix stupid."
That's for sure. Listen, you can try, but I don't know. I heard that and I was like, really? Come on. Someone's actually going to do that. It's like, no, you made it up. Well, I heard it secondhand first and heard it firsthand. So it's a pretty legit story. I don't know, it's a scary story.
Well,
But,
that's cool.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well,
Yeah, it's like saying, I want to see how he acts under pressure. So it's like 20 degrees below zero. I'm gonna lock the door so he can't get in. I want to see how he act. I want to see how he acts. Like, okay, you see this axe? He's trying to get through the door. I think he's mad. I think he's really upset.
that's funny.
Not a good way to test somebody.
That's cool. All right. Well, I'll tell you what. It's been a good show. Just for you viewers out there, next week we are going to discuss something that was brought to my attention through text messaging from someone who has left Christianity. And but they brought up a good point. Why are there contradictions in the actual Tanakh? Why do you see in First Kings it says this, but over in here in Chronicles it says this? It doesn't seem to match up. And so we're going to go over some of these claims, maybe all of them we can find, but certainly a few, and we may need to
Next
break
week
it
or
in.
2 weeks?
Oh, I'm so sorry. 2 weeks from now, 2 weeks from today, at the.
Listen, I got an engagement party to make. I'm busy. I'm busy thinking of all the food I'm gonna eat and whatever. Dancing from the chandeliers. So handing out cigars. I'll be busy. So you gotta give me another week to prepare.
That's funny. That's funny. Hey, that's okay. Yeah, so you got 2 weeks. How's that? And so
Okay.
we'll.
Great.
Yeah, so it'll be good. It'll be good. Because like I said, these things are stuff that you're going to encounter if you haven't already, and you need to have answers for them. So what better person to have them attack it or get attacked after your answer than Rabbi Chaim Coffman?
Where's my goalie mask? I'm gonna do my Jason imitation.
Oh, my. Yeah. That looked more like Psycho or something.
Could be. Could be.
That's
I was
funny.
older, maybe.
That's
Not that
funny.
old yet. Yeah.
All right, well, you guys, thank you all for tuning in. Thank you, Rabbi, and we'll see you all in 2 weeks. Shalom Aleichem. Be sure to go to the website, subscribe to Tanakh Talk on Facebook, on YouTube. Find Rabbi Chaim Coffman at Beyond Orthodox Conversion or orthodoxconversion.com. Find him there.
Don't ever take the keys out of the car when someone's driving. Not a good idea. Kaufman's law.
Moral of the story, don't be a moron. All right, take care, everybody. Shalom, shalom, everybody. Take care.
Shalom.
ביחד, איפוק זו העוצמה, ויתור זו הגדולה, השאיפה והכמיהה. אני אתה אתם תמיד תמיד כולם ביחד, חשוב מכל חשוב והכרחי להיות ביחד. איפוק זו העוצמה, ויתור זו הגדולה, השאיפה והכמיהה. חושבים דוברים לובשים בכל האופנים, זה טבעם של אנשים שונים. נזכור בסוף כולנו שותפים, חשוב תמיד להיות אנושיים. חושבים דוברים לובשים בכל האופנים, זה טבעם של אנשים שונים. נזכור בסוף